Okay, people, I am back again. What do I have today? Today I have Hyperion. Great name. Absolutely love the name. Okay, I put a picture up, but mine isn't that picture. My version is called Hyperion Cantos. And I didn't know it when I bought it because Hyperion, that's all I need. You don't judge a book by its cover. It's all the time. Not all the time. Sometimes I do. But I thought the name sounded cool. I had never heard of it. So I'm like, it's a big boy. Let me get this, right? You know how I do. Got it for $2. Well, it turns out it's two books in one, right? Second book is The Fall of Hyperion. So I only had to read about half of this for today. But it is a book. So I'll judge it accordingly. And it turns out it's fairly popular, well-known book. You could still get it today. I did research actually this time on some prices. I should be showing them. I think it's around $9, right? It's still a known book. I just didn't know it at the time. Okay, my rating. If you're a fan of this book, it may sound harsh, but this bad boy's getting a 2. A 2 out of 5. Why? Why though? I gotta say, really, for real, it's the ending, right? And we'll get to it. But, well, first I should say, no spoilers. I mean, 100% spoilers, not no spoilers. 100% spoilers about to come up. So if you haven't read the book and you don't want to be spoiled, maybe my rating already spoiled it. Maybe I should have put the spoiler warning first. It's too late now. I've hit the record button. But he doesn't stick the landing whatsoever, not in the slightest. It irks me. And for that reason, I can't say that if you're in the mood for some sci-fi, that this should be your go-to. I'm sure there's plenty of others that actually stick the landing, that give you the full meal deal. He just doesn't. Now, does that mean it's worthless? Absolutely not. There's a lot in here to like, but the parts you like end up leading you to, or me, to not like the book. The things I like is why I gave it a 2. I know it sounds funny. We have a sort of wheel of time situation here, in that there are things described that are of utmost interest. I mean, just like nectar of the gods. But we don't go there, right? You're on a sort of a tram, a trolley, what is it? You're on a bus, a tour guide, but you don't get to get off the bus. You don't get to go over there. Look at all that cool stuff. So it disappoints. But let's get into it. That'll be the sort of the themes that happen along the way. You'll see what I mean. It starts with the prologue, and you know how I do. I skip the bad boy. I always skip them. I don't read prologues. I know I'm weird, but I skipped it. So we get to chapter 1. It starts, and it's, like when a movie goes bum, and there's this big epic music, and you see this sort of like scenery or this some kind of captivating thing. That's how this book starts. He starts by us being in a Templar tree ship. And already, I'm like, you're putting, if you using the word Templar, I already think, like a knight, a holy knight. But then tree ship is just way out there. So my mind instantly goes outside the Milky Way, if you know what I mean. We're deep space. Some freaky crap's already happening. And it's sort of the way it's described. I kind of picture like elves flying around in a tree, and it's like you're walking on the branches. Space is just like right out there. These androids are helping you. It's a very vivid, very expansive idea. And I'll remember this idea years from now. Years after I've read this, I don't know if I'm rereading it. Eh, I don't know if I'm rereading it. But years from now, I will remember this world, this Templar tree ship, right? And then we get into sort of his style as a writer. Dan Simmons. I didn't say his name. My apologies. His style is very rapid pace. There's a lot of sci-fi, fantasy, any kind of book where we take the time to acclimate the reader to what the crap's happening, right? If it's a mystery book, a police procedural, we take a second to tell you what, the various police codes are, or, how the magic works, this kind of thing. Dan doesn't do that. It's rapid fire. He's saying every one of these words like you should already know what they are. And what do I mean? Tree ship. He uses the word force capitalized. Um, time debt, hegemony, world web, old earth. Uh, there's a word called fujui, fugi. I don't know how to say it. It's weird. I kept reading in my head that it said phage, but I'm pretty sure it's F-U-G-U-E. I don't know. It's sort of like a cryostasis, right? And he just throws all these words at you, and even if you don't know what they mean, they set like an ambiance around you, right? So it's like I feel like I'm in space. I feel the future. It's a very ambiance setting. Even if you don't know the words, their cadence, excuse me, their cadence, this sort of thing, it sets good ambiance. So I don't mind it. I don't need every book to just lay out everything that's happening and spell things out for me. I don't need that. I can move with you, you know. You lead, I'll follow. And that's what he does. Right? So we're in this ship and apparently there's only 6 people on it, which again, now we start a bit of a mystery. If you had like a massive a Nimitz class battleship, but only 5 people were aboard, it'd be kind of weird. A space, space is made for lots of people. Feels odd when lots of people aren't in them. If you're in a empty school, if you ever find yourself in like an empty mall, you can feel the lack of people, and you feel it here. But the 6 people on board are the consul, sort of like a government official, Het Mastine, the captain, Colonel Friedman Cassad. They say he's the butcher of South Brescia. Again, he doesn't let you catch up. Leonard Hoyt, a priest. Martin Silenus, a poet. Sol Wintrub, they say he's the wandering Jew, and his daughter Rachel. And Brani Lamia, very strong woman from a world called Lucis. Now, to be honest, as I'm reading, this happens fairly quickly. As I'm reading the first time, I'm not paying much attention to these people. And I think that's on purpose. I think he did that purposefully. Because in my mind, as a reader, I'm used to, we're going to be given time to digest what's happening, right? There's time enough for the story. Let me spend some time in this ship, right? So my mind sort of is wandering, and I'm reading it, but I'm not absorbing, right? You don't focus on all of these people. You're aware, you sort of see them, but you're not focused on them. But, they end up being the point of the story. But you don't feel it at first, which helps early in. Uh, So, hold on. Yeah. A word on the verbiage, right? And it reminded me. I don't know if you've seen Blade Runner. I didn't like it too much, but there was the line in it where he goes, "I've seen attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I've watched sea beams glitter in the dark near the Tannhauser Gate." Right? It's kind of poetic when you throw these sort of spacey terms at me, and it fills up a back memory that I don't have. And that's how, and it's throughout the whole book. He never stops this. So you always have this water level that you're never going to get off of, right? So these people all gather at a big dining hall, right? And he does this a lot too. The dining hall, a Templar, uh, like sort of like time dead world web. It's clashing verbiages that make it feel futuristic. Templars didn't have the world web, right? Priests usually don't aren't on spaceships. Grounded, not grounded. He does this a lot. So they meet up in this dining hall, and apparently they're on some kind of pilgrimage for various reasons, and they want to know more about their own particular trip. And one of them suggests that maybe each other's history, the reasons they're there, might have bearing on each other's individual situations, right? Their situations. So they decide, let's all tell our stories, and they draw they draw straws, right? They draw numbers to see who goes when, and then we begin the storytelling. We start with the priest's tale, and here again he throws you because the priest's tale is vastly different than what we were just getting the previous chapter. Um, Character completely changes. It's the priest Hoyt is telling someone else's story, right? It's one of these. I got to tell you this guy's story so you can understand mine. And the way he delivers that guy's story is through journals, right? Day 40, day 400, on and on we go. So it's a completely different feel to the book already, and it just shifts on you. It draws you in really well. The friend's name is a Jesuit Father Paul Dury, and he ends up, for reasons, going to Hyperion. So now we get our first, taste of the planet. And I got to tell you, the planet is stupid interesting. Stupid interesting. It for a space age with all this tech, it's an outback. There are elements to the planet that make the technology not usable, right? They what do they have? They have time tides, Tesla trees, fire forests. They have things like multi-hued gossamers, jungles that glow with phosphorus decay of glowbirds, right? It's just this wild, fantastical planet that I mean the characters, right? Because we go along with them. The characters have to deal with this planet um, primitively. They can't fly to where they want. The lifts don't work. You have to use wagons and walk and hack your way through this planet, right? It's like a space Amazon jungle, right? That even all the new tech may not save you from. And in the depths of this jungle are further mysteries, which our boy Paul, our father Paul Dury, finds them, right? He finds some of them. He goes deep after an arduous journey, mind you, and you sit in with what's happening. If it's an arduous journey, you're there with them. When they discover weird elements, you're there with them. When they try to deal with those elements, you forget about the jungle and you forget about the discovery, and you're there with them and dealing with it. So Dan Simmons moves you with these characters very well. And he gives each issue, it's room to breathe, right? If today I'm watching a cricket match, it's important today. 3 days from now, that cricket match isn't so important. What's important is, the hike that I'm on. But it doesn't negate the other, right? You don't discount it in your storytelling. He gives them each weight. So after this arduous journey, our Jesuit meets what he calls the Bakura. There are these 50 kind of like, I don't know, like dwarf space monk situations. It's very odd how they're described. They all dress the same. They're all kind of bald. They're all kind of youthful but old. They're they're disconnected, right? They don't really talk to you, right? But then they also will kill you, right? They killed his crew that he was rolling with, just stabbed him. But they didn't kill him because he had a cross on, right? So I'm like, it's weird. It's very weird. He has he introduces us to, I don't know, what did he say? The time tomb? Some kind of a weird cathedral kind of situation, right? There's all these kind of elements wrapped up in Hyperion, and we can never get a clear through line as to what the crap's happening. But as he's hanging out with these Bikurai, he's trying to like study them because he's going to bring the information back to whatever church he's from, future church. And one day his cross, because he's wearing a cross, falls off. And these little guys flip the crap out and like grab him because they thought he was at the crucifix and now he's not at the crucifix. So they have a debate, a weird, not very in-depth debate as to whether to kill him or not. And you're like, bro's gonna die. His journal survives because our Father Hoyt has it, but guy's not gonna make it. Instead, they take him into this cathedral and do some kind of weird space surgery on him or something, some kind of way. And then when he wakes up, his next journal entry is telling of a crucifix embedded in his chest. I mean, it's unsettling, right? Anytime things get embedded into people, I'm like, me no likey. But there it is, and he tries over the course of the next, I don't know, like 600 days to deal with this thing, right? He can't take it off. It has weird elements to it where he almost can't die, right? He gets cut, it heals him. He tries to deal. He tries to like, like if you have like a tick on you, you put heat on it and it'll come off. He tries to bring pain to it to make it leave, but it won't. It always passes him out before, and then they drag him back. And in the end, I mean, it's very, you don't know how it's going to go. But in the end, like we get one last journal entry where he has some kind of an idea. And it's like 1,000 some odd days in. And he gets it in his mind that it's like a pain test between him and the crucifix, the cruciform, they call it. Just whatever this alien is that's in his chest. And that he's going to test it, and he's sure, because he's, full of faith, that he'll outlast this thing. And you're like, what the crap is he going to do? So we cut to Father Hoyt, who lands on Hyperion looking for this father, this Jesuit, his friend. And they trudge through the forest, and he says that they just find his burnt up body in the journal, and that his guides kill all the Bakuri and seal up the cathedral, and he's very sad about it. But this is a trick. This isn't true. When the Colonel Kassad goes to check on him, he's having sort of like a medical issue. But the colonel won't give him his medicine until he tells him the actual truth. So now we're like, oh man, we have a mystery and a mystery here. Right? And so through pain, he gives him the actual truth of what happened. And the truth is, our Jesuit, like, went up into a Tesla tree, or something, some fire tree, some kind of one of these kind of freaky Hyperion things, right? And he crucified himself to the tree, like, hacked his own arms and hands onto this tree. And then what happened is the tree like roasted him alive. But then the cruciform healed him. It kept him alive, but the tree kept burning him, right? And so when the priest, our Hoyt, got there, he found this charred guy, and he swears that when they get close to him to take him down, the cruciform just like falls off, and he gets this moment of contact with this friend of his, and he's like, my guy is in there, and he like half smiles, like victory was achieved just before he finally dies because the cruciform's off of him now. He beat the cruciform, but with this horrible way, and you're like, Jesus, this is like some heavy crap, right? It's not delivered in a soft way. He gives it to you real and heavy. And then it turns out our father Hoyt has like two of these cruciforms on him, right? So you're like, what the crap is happening? How'd he get off the planet with them? What's happening? He clearly needs this medicine before the cruciforms like take him out. So our colonel gives him the medicine. The chapter ends, and you're left spinning, right? You have so many questions, and part of you wonders as the reader how Dan's going to get us through this, right? That's it's a pretty epic way to start, but what comes next, right? Well, he then it's another element that continues through the book. He alternates between each person's story and the current events. Current events are they're on the tree ship, they're landing, and they're going to make a pilgrimage onto Hyperion to go to a place. So, in between each of these stories is more of the movements of these people, the real life, the real time movements. Just keep that in mind. Which is how I take it when I actually read. I get to where you want the next story, right? The next story is a Colonel Kassad's story. And here, I mean, my enjoyment goes from like 10 to 11. It really does. Because that's what we want from sci-fi books, right? Give me the fantastical. Give me these things. I mean, I can look out my window. I live in East Texas. It's just trees and squirrels out there, right? Nothing's happening. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing is going to happen. There's been trees and squirrels outside of that window on that part of Texas for 2,000 years. 3,000 Indians came by. When they walked through that bit of woods, they saw squirrels and trees. It's just always been, right? So you give me something. Give me the fantastical. Give me crazy, bite off big subjects, try and swallow them down. And he does. I'm interested in every part of Hyperion, every part of the planet. I want to hang out in the jungles. I want adventurers, swashbuckling, to try and deal with whatever these creatures are, these weird insects, these dangerous rivers. I love all of that. Colonel Kassad gives me the other half of the story, which is everything in the modern world. We have, and for a second it took me a second. Now give him some leeway because he wrote it, I guess, before the internet, 86 or something like this. So when he says World Web, I'm thinking the internet, right? But he means it in a kind of internet slash, Stargate kind of way. In that if your world's connected to the World Web, obviously information can go through. You can plug into the web and talk with other people. But you can also go through sort of gateways they've made. And now you're on a different planet, just one step through. And this is highly pervasive. There are millions of these gates. Once a big, let's say, fiber optic line's established, lots of little connections through neighborhoods, right? So that if you're rich, if you're stupid rich, like you can be in your room, and your window can be a gateway to another planet. So outside your window, you're seeing snow that's on another planet in another galaxy. You can have this room on Earth. You go through that door, and that room is on a different, like, ice planet. That room's a different tropical planet, right? Some people just have like a bathroom that's an island on an endless sea. This kind of thing, right? So your mind instantly just rapid fire on the possibilities. It's tremendous. I'd love a world just exploring that. Just let me live in there. So Colonel Kassad, we start as a sort of an officer in training, and then he brings us to part of this world, which is the sims, right? The simulations. He's having what they call force training, force in big capital, like Army or Navy. So this you take this as the main space military in the, what do they call it? The hegemony. Again, I love Starfleet, hegemony, right? The galactic planets, United Galactic Planets. I love all that crap. It's always fun. So the hegemony is training its soldiers, and the way they train them is just delicious, just absolute delicious. They build a simulation of, here he starts in 1415, and he's in King Henry V's army while they're fighting whoever King Henry was fighting. Knights with lances, he has a big sword, he's an archer. And because it's a sim, you need some physicality to deal with this thing, right? In real life, if you were a longbowman for Henry V, the draw strength on those things, you had to pull like 250 pounds to draw that bow back, right? You got to be a big, yoked out dude. So if he shoots 9 arrows, 250 pounds, 9 times. He's tired. Then here's a knight in armor he's got to kill with a knife and a sword, right? In leather armor, and it's going to try and kill him. And as he looks around, he has no way to tell if the person he's fighting with is a simulation or a plug-in like he is, another cadet. The knight who he's killing could be a cadet. That cadet could feel, getting stabbed, and whatever you fail or you don't. He doesn't really say. I don't think you fail if you die. They're just trying to give their soldiers experience in every kind of battle, in every kind of way. And that's what they do. They go through, I don't know how many thousands of years of training, right? Here's the battle in this. Here's fighting with Napoleon. Here's World War One, Two, Vietnam, World War Two, Three, World Wars Four, Space Wars. All the battles of history. Can you imagine training a soldier? Our army would love this. Any army would love this. You throw a soldier in every major conflict that's ever happened. You know how much experience you'd have by the time you're done? It's absolutely genius. I love it. He also, on top of things that I love, he gives these ideas on, there's expensive medicines you can take to add 100 or 200 years to your life. So you can have a Colonel Kassad who could live 200, 300 years with, how many thousands of years equivalent of military experience. You got an army of these cats. You have not, you have a respectable fighting force here, right? Highly trained people. So that's what he's doing. He's having these trainings. And in the midst of this training, he meets this beautiful woman, and they sort of start taking on a love affair. He doesn't know her name, she won't say. He only meets her in The Sims. Half of him wonders if she's even real, but they carry on a love affair through the battles of of human history. So during Vietnam, during these space battles, it's a very odd element to add. And you're like, what the crap, what's going on? But then he graduates. He has no way of finding her if she were real, if she were another cadet. He's tried. but he graduates sort of high up in his class. And then I guess the battles start for him, right? So he moves up in the military, and eventually he's sent to the planet Brescia. And this is where we're introduced to the boogeyman of the day for our modern society, the ousters. Apparently there was a batch of people who didn't want to be part of the world web, the collection of planets, so they extricated themselves from it. And they come back and they're a terrible, vicious force. And a lot like, I don't know if you've read or seen The Expanse, because they live so long in space, they have elongated limbs, they have to wear exoskeletons to fight on regular gravity, this kind of thing. I love the idea of these as well. I know, a lot of things I love. Why did I give it a 2? You'll see. We'll get there. So the ousters come, and they don't fight with the rules that anyone else fights with, right? They're vicious. They're vicious people. And the way he describes it, it's like there's time debt, right? So if you go at whatever hyper speed, everyone else ages normal and you don't age, that kind of concept. He plays with that a lot. So because they're out, they don't have access to that hyper speed. They're not whipping through planets in an instant second, right? They have to travel from planet to planet. So they have like more generations under them, I guess, than the regular hegemony. And they live those years. So they can come with some tech. They come with their own tech. They're not, barbarians that are going to get rolled. And that's what he figures out. They think everyone in the hegemony thinks they're barbarians. His first fight with them, he realizes, where'd the lid go? What the crap? I lost the lid. I'll find it later. I'm going to stab myself in the eye with it. He finds out very quick in this fight that these people ain't playing, that they can stand up to the hegemony, the best force in the universe, and they just start doing damage. The other generals keep trying to fight by the rules, but he instantly shifts. And it turns Brescia into a kind of World War I fight where he's like, I got to throw bodies against their bodies and, win by attrition. And that's what he does. So 100,000, 200,000 die very quickly on both sides. But he holds them off. He ends up sort of famous for this. But it's some vicious fighting. So you're like, again, I'll leave the simulations and the fun of that. I have an odd feeling this cap is on me, but I don't think it's possible. It's going to be distracting. Let me check the camera. It's not on me. Where was I? You leave the interests of these simulations behind, and now you're highly interested in this war, right? Because of the way he's describing it. So our boy's injured in a goofy way, just a random booby trap. And as he's leaving on a medical ship, and he wakes up and he's like, yeah, you took this damage, that damage. Boom, a bomb goes off. And he reacts, right, like a soldier should. He insta-reacts. The nurse dead. He finds like a spacesuit. He barely escapes the atmosphere getting sucked out of this ship. So he finds a spacesuit that he barely fits in, that doesn't have enough air. And now we have this kind of military survival situation. Kind of feels like a sinking battleship, right, where the water's acid or something, right? Because he can't be exposed to full-on space. He knows it's an ouster ship, and that they're going to come looking for survivors, which is what they do. And it's this high-tense, high-stakes situation, which, credit to Dan Simmons, you care about Colonel Kassad. Somehow, for some reason, you don't want this man to die. You have a vested interest in him. And maybe because our Jesuit priest died, we don't know what's going to happen. And in our unknowing, um, it feels better to hang on to these characters, right? There are life preservers in this sea of crazy story. So you don't want them to die, and it comes close. He has to kill some of these ousters in like a weird space fight. It's very interesting. He ends up, crash landing on the planet. Then it gets even weirder, right? Because you're like, how can he make me forget this wicked space battle? Because space battles are awesome. He makes you forget by Hyperion and the craziness that can happen there. He meets his lady friend on the planet, like in the flesh for real, and she gives him kind of an armor that makes him all silver. He can move through like bullet time is his. He can move through bullet time. So when these ousters come to finish him off, they're moving like at snail's pace, and he's like dodging their bullets and stabbing them in the throat. Right? And they can't do anything about it. And then the Shrike comes, which is some kind of thing on Hyperion, and it's described as like 7 feet tall with 4 arms, made of like knives or some crap. And I'm like, what the crap is this? And then they just decimate this platoon of ousters. Just cut them apart, cut them to pieces. And then he's having a sexy time with his lady friend, and she starts turning into one of these, like this Shrike. She goes from woman to this twisted mass of metal and blades, and she starts stabbing into him. And he barely escaped with his life. And you're like, what the crap is going on? Right? Boom, his story ends. You're like, holy crap. The crap is the Shrike. What was this armor? What's going on Hyperion? While the battles are floating in your brain and the world web's floating in your brain, it's a lot. You're like, bro. And at this point, I'm thinking, 5-star book. Beautifully written. You're sucked into every story. You're there every step of the way. Even though it's heavy and some of the things that happen are, sort of horrible, you're very interested. Then we come to, what do we come to? The Poet's Tale. I'm going to tell you right now, the poet is the most annoying character in the book. I don't like him. And it's at this point I figure out what my boy Dan's doing. And I'll describe it as sci-fi jazz. Right? So, if like Lord of the Rings is classical music, it's Beethoven, it's Mozart. We're still playing this music. I done it now. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? A catastrophe. My foot caught the cord. Oh, God. You know what? I'm going to leave it in. Cord. So, poet. What is it? Sci-fi jazz, right? So you get Mozart and Beethoven, and it's just this glorious music that's still played 500 years, 700 years after the fact. Still, professionally. If you sat and learned nothing but Mozart, you could make a living playing Mozart to crowds. They love it. It's dynamic. It's big and bold. Jazz. What is jazz, right? a bunch of squawks and noises, a little skiddly bop bop doo bop. Yeah, right. It's pretentious, and it's trying to be classical, but it doesn't have the skill, right? And I know if you like jazz, yeah, blah blah blah. Your guy's great. I'm gonna be honest with you. In 500 years, no one's gonna be playing your favorite jazz musician, and they're still gonna be playing Mozart. I hate to break it to you, it is what it is, bro. In any case, that's what our boy's doing. If you take all the sciencey words, you take the vast shifts in storytelling from one instance to the next, from first person to sort of not first person, journal stylistic, military, you know, he's giving you space jazz, right? Sci-fi jazz. And that's not in itself wrong. What happens, and it happens to jazz musicians, is they bite off more than they can chew, right? They have little moments, little runs that you like, but they can't do anything with it, you know? And that's what starts to happen here. He this is an annoying character, right? And he's very I can feel the author's pretentiousness in this character almost. So annoying. He's trying to make him this poet, this artsy, beret wearing, deep character. But it doesn't land. It just does not land at all. Right? And once, the mystery comes off, because all books, the mystery will come off. You'll know what the author's doing. You have to keep, even when I know what's happening, Tolkien, I've reread it. It works every time because he can conduct so well. But, jazz won't hold up to scrutiny, so to speak. And this doesn't. None of the things he wants to land are landing. It's just so pretentious, this whole section. In any case, our boy's like 2,000 years old. He's from old Earth. Again, another great idea where only it's the Earth's sort of semi-broken. So most of the people have left, and the rest has been bought by just the uber rich, and that's what he's one of. He's one of these uber rich. I know the author's like, it's a commentary on rich people and decadence. I'm like, blah, blah, blah. So pretentious. It's cool. The idea of super rich living on Earth and, flying around and just the Sahara, the Arctic, these are like gardens for them and their friends. That part's interesting. And so he's in cryo sleep for I don't know how many hundreds of years, thousands of years old, but most of it's spent in cryo sleep or whatever the word he uses. He introduces a sad King Billy who does some construction on Hyperion before the strike comes and starts offing people. And those are some brutal deaths. When you get killed by the strike, it's not like, one of these clean, it's not a soldier's death. It's gruesome. In any case, we end with our poet thinking he concocted, like the strike is here because of my writing, right? I'm like, ugh. I don't like stories where the story's involved, right? We're like books about authors, like I'm writing this book and this weird stuff happens. It never sits well. I feel like readers don't connect with words. They don't connect with the story the way writers would, right? Like a writer writing about a writer, it always sort of falls for me. You always want to be writing about something else. I don't know, that's just what I've noticed. So this one just doesn't land really. And the spell is kind of broken, so I kind of now know what to expect. But I'm still interested. Again, we have these tidbits of a world, of a universe that I'm interested in. We then go to the Scholar's Tale. Soul, they call him Soul throughout. I forget his long name. What is it? Soul Weintraub. Weintraub. I don't know how you say it. And again, here he sort of reaches his limit. If you're going to do 6 individual stories, and like he did for the first 2, they're individualistic for each person because he's describing them as telling their stories to the group, right? You are going to tell a story, your way, and I'm going to tell mine, my way. We'll bank on different elements. We'll say it in a different. We speak differently. He starts to lose that. I start to get the sense that it's Dan telling me all these stories, right? So he doesn't hold up sort of his end of the bargain. But it's hard to do. But I didn't tell him to do it. I'm only judging what's there. So he starts to lose it. Because each person, like I said, sounds like one person telling the story. But you can tell he's trying. And here he tries the just a country boy, and I met a country girl, and we're living this simple life. We have a daughter, and she's really smart, and we love her. All right, he's trying to sell me a love story. Love story's not his strength. This weird sci-fi crap is his strength. But he's trying, but he's not landing, so I can't give him too much credit. And we spend a lot of time here, and I'm not interested. But we get to Rachel, and then Rachel ends up going to Hyperion because she was studying to be an anthropologist. The moment I'm like, she's going to Hyperion, I'm like, freaky crap's about to hit the wall. Freaky crap does hit the wall. Everything in the time tombs, that's what they call them, because the time tides, some kind of tide, rolls in and washes over these tombs, then rolls out. So you have a certain amount of time you can study them. But they're regular. So she's in under some sphinx trying to do some kind of research when a freak tide comes in and washes over her. It was unscheduled. It's very freaky. Horror-esque, right? The way it happens to her. Pretty sure the strike's involved and may have stabbed her, but we can't know exactly what the crap happened. In any case, once she's out of this, she's like infected with the time tide, and it's making her age in reverse from adult down to child to who knows what. And I'm like, that's highly interesting. But the way they take it, he's trying to tug at your heartstrings, right? And the parents, I think, take it kind of weird. They're just going to be like, well, let's just re-raise our daughter every year. She every day she's aging younger till she's a baby or something. I don't know what their plan was. I don't think they had a plan. They were just really sad. But I'm like, bro, she's like 25. You're going to have like 25 years in reverse to try and figure something out. Do something. And then he starts having these weird biblical dreams like he's Abraham and he's got to, sacrifice his daughter to Hyperion. It's very heavy-handed, pretentious connections he's trying to make. Whenever you're going to bring some Bible crap in, if you look at the Bible, as literature, it's top-tier literature. It's very well written. It's very heavy. So you're now having to match that literature with what you're writing. And he can't do it, right? He's trying to dunk on Shaq a little bit, if you know what I'm saying. And the ball's getting swatted. It's not going well. In any case, once it's a baby, the guy decides to go on this pilgrimage to Hyperion. Next up should have been Het Mastin, the captain, El Capitano. And again, I'm starting to, by now we've lost a 5. It's not a 5-star. And I'm getting annoyed, so will we lose that 4-star? Maybe that's what we're looking at around this point. And I think here's where we lose the 4-star, because he has Het Mastin die somehow in some kind of mystery. We're in his cabin, there's blood everywhere, and he's nowhere to be found. And now I'm really annoyed, because I like these stories. I want to know what's happening with these people. You've set it up, Dan, You've set up this thing that I want, and now you're not delivering. And there's not delivering in a way that's good, that builds anticipation. And then there's just flat not delivering. And that's sort of how I take it. I'm very annoyed. He tries to make it some kind of mystery, but, I don't care. The other characters don't really seem to care. No one's really buying in. We all assume it's the Shrike that killed him, but we don't ever know. But we miss out on his story, and that's what really annoys me. That's the only thing I'm hanging on to the rest of this book for is this backstory on this universe. And he gives you a taste. Again, another example. This guy in his luggage has what he calls a Mobius cube. And this is some kind of a device, just as an example of what it can do. Because you trap, I'd say, moments in a Mobius cube. That's about, I guess, the size of like a small treasure chest or something. I don't know. They don't describe it as huge. But they say you could capture a nuclear explosion the nanosecond of ignition. Right? So it's, I guess, like a time loop or something, but captured in this box is that moment. So you just bring it into a spot, push the buttons, open it, the explosion goes off. Carry a bomb, any kind of a moment type of thing, an artifact, all kind of things happen in these It can be captured in this cube. And I'm like, that's highly interesting. Highly interesting. Which makes me more mad that I didn't get his story and don't know what the crap's going to happen. It's all I want is the lore. I almost don't care about the rest of this. I certainly don't care about their pilgrimage. You know, just tell me about the strike. Just get on with it. Then we come to the detective's tale, Brani Kamiya, right? And it's full on, and he's really trying, but he's not landing at this point. Again, once you've lost the verisimilitude, that that thing that lets you suspend your disbelief, you're sort of out, and it's hard to get you back in. And he's not able to. Her tale is like it's full on noir detective, right? What is it? One of these like I knew she was trouble when she walked in. She was tall and beautiful, but that's just the kind of trouble I like. This kind of cheesy noir. That's how it starts. Not her specifically, but essentially that's how her story starts. Full on detective noir. She even wears a trench coat and has a regular pistol, and it's like, ugh, I'm so bored. And part of it is you're bored because you know now the beats he's going to take in these mini stories, and that the nugget is at the end when we reconnect with Hyperion. So whatever's happening here doesn't really carry, right? The what is it? The professor's life doesn't matter. His relationship with his wife is irrelevant. What matters is his daughter being on Hyperion. You know, Colonel Kassad's training doesn't matter. Only his interactions with the Shrike, right? So that's what's annoying about here. But we get again more cool elements to hang on. We get introduced to a cybrid. That's not exactly an android. It's like a artificial intelligence put into like an organic human body. They're legally limited by the number of these they can make. We get introduced to the concepts of the AIs, and that the AIs are the ones helping warp people around. They run a lot of the structures, stock market, nuclear weapons, this kind of thing. They have a lot of control, but they only do the job because instead of having a war with humanity, they have autonomy. They can do what they want. They're their own sort of like kingdom, but they help the hegemony, right? At least that's what they say. Because here we also get a lot of the machinations behind these AI. Because his story is someone tried to kill him, which again is another concept of can you kill an AI? And his version's like, I was shut off for like 5 minutes, and for me that's like losing, I don't know, billions of amounts of data that I can't get back. So I guess to him that counts as death. I don't know. But the background with the AI is what's really interesting here. And here again is a great credit to Dan. Rather than having, we always have Skynet, these evil AI that just want to kill humanity because we're the only problem. Instead of going that route, he gives us three variations in AI. They're like at a political impasse themselves. On the one hand, there are the stables, who think we need a symbiotic relationship with humankind. There are the volatiles, who think let's kill humanity now and get it over with, that we know we're going to anyway. And then there are the ultimates. The ultimates they're the ones who are responsible for the cybrids, which are like, let's say, because we have the sims, right? The simulations that I can remake General Patton. If I got all the data of General Patton and forced it into an android and then try and detach that android so it runs on its own, couldn't I get like recreate General Patton? And they almost can, except for the cybrids always realize they're not General Patton and then kind of go crazy. Right? So the ultimates are trying, it's like a data dig. If we can sort of create a human, recreate one, right? We take all the data we have, all the predictors and the algorithms we have, because we're AI, Android, artificial intelligence. and we could make a person, then we're like above them, right? We've made ourselves gods or something to this effect. That they want 100% predictors, right? Once I can do all of this, I can lay out all the variables and 100% predict what's going to happen at all times, and then we're golden, right? Because they're AI, if there's 1% chance they could mess up and die, then they've essentially killed themselves in their heads because eventually that 1% is going to happen. And so these three are always sort of at odds with each other. But we also learn that two of the three kind of know there's going to be a war. That the humans, that at some point, the volatiles are going to get their wish. That the ultimates are going to get enough data, then side with the volatiles, pull the trigger, and kill all of humanity. So, enter Hyperion. Again, all roads lead to Rome here. Hyperion's the freaky spot in everything. Our cybrid here gives us inside information that the AI can't figure out Hyperion. They can't figure out the time tides or what the crap happens, why it's there. What they've settled on is one of two things. They've realized that it's what's happening there, and the time tombs is coming backwards from the future, from some kind of a future back to us. And it's either the AI have won and are sending something back in time to put the stamp on it and win that 100% win rate, right? They want a 100% clearance. They want all the achievements. Or some element of humanity survived enough in the future to send a weapon back in time to preempt the devastating loss they're going to take, right? And it's one of these two things. So they were trying to keep this cybrid off the planet Hyperion, lest he be the reason that everything's unlocked and they lose the war. Right? So this idea of some kind of time travel, of some kind of imminent war, and of everything on a razor's edge is very interesting. So I love all that, but wrapping it in a romance sucks. We all know what eventually is going to happen because there's no AI with her. Homeboy gets shot up and dies. But then again, another little element he introduces that's interesting. He calls it a Sharon disc implanted in our lady Lamia. And it's kind of like an infinite loop so that it can store endless amounts of data in like a loop cloud of some kind. Data couriers would implant them to safely move information because of some little access point. So our boy's downloaded into this loop on Our Lady. So she's sort of carrying her AI love. Again, you saw it coming the moment he mentions it. We get into the consul's tale, which again is another failure. He can't land a romance. He tries desperately to establish one. It doesn't stick for me. I don't care. I do not care about these people. It's again, a cool element wrapped in a dumb element. He's describing the building of one of these new relays, so to speak, to attach a new planet to the world web. They send workers out, and it's going to take you, I don't know, 100 years or whatever of travel to get parts and this and that, and cryo sleep and this and that. So basically everyone you know might be dead. But you're going to end this trip rich because you're going to go way out in space and build up this little gateway. And in the midst of this, he falls in love with the tribe girl, and over the years, because he stays young and she's getting older, the tribes people turn this into sort of like a famous romance. This star-streaking mariner loves this girl, yada yada, right? She ends up getting old and dying, obviously. And she leaves him a message because it's some Greenpeace crap about saving the dolphins or some crap. I don't know. I don't care. Where he then attacks the opening of this gate that he helped build. but he loses horribly because he got no tech. There's backwater. I'm supposed to feel a certain thing, but I don't. And so our console, yeah, is supposed to feel it too. And I'm like, I guess he does. I don't know. I don't care. But he cares because he's the grandson of these people and he wants to get back at the hegemony for what they did to his planet and his grandparents, blah, blah, blah. You know what's happening. He moves up through the political world until he gets biding his time, till he gets sent as an ambassador to the ousters. I think sometime after Brescia. And here he double crosses the hegemony and he tells them the whole thing, like we're trying to bait you into a fight on Hyperion so that we can, kill you and coalesce and get these AI on our side, blah, blah, blah. So the main government, the main hegemony, knows a war could happen. And they're all right with sacrificing millions to maintain a new era of hegemony. But he sells them out, right? Double crosses. And instead of killing them, they accept him in, right? Like you'll double cross by feeding them bad intel. And so he spends time with them and we learn some of their culture, which is very interesting. These big sort of like amorphous flow of ships that flies around the universe and does all kind of things. Really like a space. It's kind of like, like an Atlantis, this underwater race of people where they get fins or whatever, but a space version of that, right? The civilization's just built itself in space. They have all these ways to be in zero G, all this kind of thing. It's highly interesting. But then he goes back to the hegemony, and now he's triple crossing people because he turns on them and he tells the hegemony, I told them this and they told me that, and yada, yada, yada. So he's setting everyone up. And each one thinks he's still on their side. So when he goes back to the ousters, turns out, because of the way they've been running through the universe, not cheating, so to speak, but living all of those years, they've explored some of Hyperion as well. Their scientists figured out the time tides, right? And in their estimation, it's a weapon from ousters from the future to help them win all the wars they need to win. Their time tombs are full of all the weapons they'll need to win it. They have a way of opening them and getting all the stuff. They're just going to have a debate as to whether they should because, anyone with a conscience takes a second before they start a holy crusade that's going to kill, billions of people. Well, the triple crossing console here shoots everyone, opens the time tombs. He's the reason the strike's out. And he in his mind is going to give it access to the world web. If the Shrike has access to the world web, it's just going to Ginsu untold billions. But he's accepted that because of what they did to his grandpappy or whatever. I'm like, this idea is great. Do I care about his reasonings? No. That's why. And then we get to the end, which is basically that. It just ends like that. We get 3 pages of an epilogue, which does nothing but have them, line up in front of the time tombs. That's it. Clearly it's supposed to be for the second part of the book, but I gotta judge it as its own book. And any book that don't stick the landing, and any book that clearly has the skill to set up these good elements, but then doesn't delve into them or deliver on them, and leaves you annoyed at the end, is just a 2, right? It's annoying. You don't want to be annoyed at the end of a book. I get that some books can leave you with more questions than answers, but that's too many. It's too many questions. It's chopped off. I get he was trying to leave me feeling a kind of way, but it didn't land, right? Makes me highly annoyed at this bad boy. All right, this has been a bit of a disaster of a video, but I'm putting it up uncut because that's how I like to roll. Let's see how long I went. Let's see. All right, that's a reasonable length of time. This is the obligatory ad. Oh, this should convince y'all to start buying my books at some point, right? Or maybe not. I don't know. In any case, I can't recommend this book, right? Just the overall, once you're left at the end, you're like, that was unsatisfying in a lot of ways. dissatisfying. And then again, like your Wheel of Time, anyone who wastes such good elements doesn't deserve a 3. You don't deserve a recommendation like that. You certainly don't deserve a 4. You could have earned a 4 if you'd have just stuck the landing. It's annoying. So, if you want to read it, go ahead. It's the elements are certainly worthy, but the ending isn't. If someone just told me what happened, maybe I'd just start in the second book. Maybe when I start the second book, it'll be where you should start. We'll find out together at some point in ye old future. All right. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to get to work. Hopefully, I can do all my, picture adding stuff and get this posted and up on the old internet. All right. Talk to you later.